everybody, and welcome to the Theatre Pitch podcast. I'm Jem, this is Joe.
Hiya.
This is Sean.
Hello.
And in this podcast, what we do is each of us have incredibly different styles of making theatre and the kind of things that we like. But in this podcast, much like every OFIT production, we take a random article from a online encyclopedia. Each of us have come up with a pitch for that article of what we would do personally with that subject and with that story, and then at the end, much like an OFIT production, we smush those ideas together and hopefully come up with a comprehensible theatre show. So this episode's podcast is based on the article Bravest, which is a fireboat. Joe, you have proven many times before to have a brilliant voice for radio and a great way of reading things out, so would you like to tell us about the Bravest?
Boy, would I. Yes, I would, and I'm definitely not just playing for time because I forgot to get up the article about the boat.
I think that's why Gemma said, "Oh, Joe, can you do it?" Because she forgot to get the article up as well.
I'm actually staring at the article now. It was more just me going, I'm not going to sight read.
Well, time to get on my best radio voice. The Bravest is a fireboat operated by the Fire Department of New York City. She was commissioned on May the 27th, 2011. The FDNY currently has 3 large fireboats, including the Bravest, supplemented by approximately a dozen smaller, high-speed patrol craft.
Brilliant. So, there's a little bit, and when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit more to that article. There are only a couple of more sentences, but today's theatre pitch is going to be for Bravest. So, Sean, Joe, who would like to pitch first?
Well, Sean, I believe you were the one who was really quite excited about this idea, so why don't you go first?
Okay. Let me just get my notebook. Okay.
The pen's coming out.
So
I'm getting my notebook up here.
The theatre show is called The Bravest. Yep, see. Okay. No, I'm not going to say that one, because that'll be the plot twist later. Okay, it's the story of the Bravest fireboat, and it's set in Big City Port, the largest port in all the world. Time, it's the Roaring Twenties. The story follows... What?
I don't know why, I just love that you're already just like, screw it, it's the 20s.
It's the 20s. See, now, my thinking with the 20s is, right, it's a time when, like, boats and industry, it's all focused on, like, getting with the boats. Because there's no lorries yet. You know, we're talking canals. See, it's when boats would be used. I'm not just picking numbers and saying, oh, the 20s was a cool time.
In all those canals throughout New York City.
Yep. It's hey, it's not New York City. It's Big City, set in Big City Port.
Okay. Fair enough.
And the story follows Bravest, small town harbour's greatest fireboat. See what I've done there? As he moves to the big city and proves his worth as the newest member of the city's star fleet. Yeah. So that's the story. It's for kids. It's centered for kids. Yeah, go on.
Is the boat personified? The boat's the character.
The boat is the character. Oh yeah. Because
are we gonna,
Joe? The boats are characters because it is a musical theatre piece where I'm basically ripping off Starlight Express. Yes, the boats.
I was gonna say, is it Starlight Express with boats
on rollerblades?
So it's a musical theatre show on rollerblades about boats.
About boats. Obviously.
Okay.
Obviously. My next note, you got there ahead. My next note is basically rip off Starlight Express. So that's the story. Very, very, you know what I mean? It's the underdog story of the small fireboat trying to prove himself in the big city. It's for kids, it's for families. So my plan was, the way I'm thinking, it's a theatre piece, right? But I want it to eventually be big arena shows. So how do I get it from there? Okay, I get it with toys. We do a TV show. And then eventually, we brand Bravest like it's the new Thomas the Tank Engine. Yeah. So that's that. That's my thinking. Just Starlight Express, rollerblades, boats. Yeah,
I think that before we move on, I think that there's a potential here to actually, if you want a quick shortcut to get this into your big arenas, have you thought of just trying to pitch this straight to Disney? Because they've got cars, they've got planes. Have they got boats? Boats go on the water. Water is ice. Disney on ice. I'm just saying.
And this is what Joe always contributes: is the thought gaps. Sean, is there anything else to your pitch?
I can pitch this to Disney. I was gonna go Netflix, but because Netflix, you know what I mean, quick animated thing, I'd be there.
Yeah.
So stage, it's it'll be in your classic West End. We might bring the set so like it goes around the audience, but then when we get to the arena show, no rules, just go crazy with it. It's going up, it's going down. I don't know how that would make sense because it'd be canals, but still, just around the audience. They're on rollerblades. There can be a half pipe, you know what I mean, for some reason. But that's that. Yeah. That was my. As soon as I saw the boat, and I was like, Starlight Express. That's how I could turn that.
I've got a question.
I've got an answer. Come on.
So, the boats are the characters.
The boats are the characters.
And they're on rollerblades.
Yeah. Every character.
How's a boat going to be on rollerblades?
How does a train go on rollerblades? Starlight Express.
Yeah, costumes.
Yeah.
And is it a person being a boat, or is it a puppet, or?
Hang on, is this where we find out you've never seen Starlight Express? Gem, you're missing out. You're missing out. It's called theatre, Gemma. It's called acting. It's called imagination. It's them. Their costume. They're like a sort of a boat. They're just sort of like giving off their vibe. So all of the stars, they're in, because that's what the emergency fleet's called in big city port. The stars. I was gonna think of a cool name, but then I just gave up and robbed something off Resident Evil. Yeah, so it's just costumes, Gemma. Like, the red guys are obviously the people wearing red are obviously the fire people. The other people would be like, I don't know, like tugboats, or what other boats are there? Like the industry boats.
There's yachts, catamarans, skiffs.
We can have some cool costumes for them.
Ferries.
The people who did Lion King never had this problem. They were like, oh, so they're lions. How are we going to do that? With costumes?
Okay, but lions are individuals and a boat is a... I suppose, yeah, okay.
A boat is an individual. They've got names.
And anybody who's not watching this, but is just listening to this, just to inform you, my face is currently melting with this idea. All right, okay. So Sean's idea is a musical theatre show on rollerblades starring boats, and it's for kids in arenas. Fantastic. Joe, over to you. I'm terrified of what you might say. Continue. What is your pitch?
So my idea is based off one sentence from this Wikipedia article that I didn't get to earlier, which is that the nameplate of Bravest was carved from a plate of steel recovered from the World Trade Center.
Yes.
So what I want to do is essentially something that, if you wanted me to give the lift pitch for it, it's Warhorse meets Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants. Essentially, okay. This is a play with one central character, and that is a sheet of metal. So the idea is we follow this sheet of metal through the many lives it is lead, the many jobs that it is lent to, up until we see it going through it being built into the World Trade Center, and the ending of the play is it being positioned on the side of Bravest.
I quite like what you're trying to go for. Narrative wise, continue.
So essentially, we use a small cast who play a multitude of different characters, and we can either insert into historical events or just see it as stories of, like, you know, we start opening on a steel mill somewhere in small town America, and it opens on a searing indictment of small industry and the way that the government is punishing them because the steel mill gets closed down and the steel gets shipped off to somewhere else. And who knows, maybe it ends up on a different boat earlier on, just so that we can make use of the boat props that we're going to have to clearly buy. And I just see it as being, it's a way of telling these many stories and about how the lives that everyday objects that we take for granted live. How, you know how there's always those things where you get like recycled bottles where it says, like, you know, this bottle was once a can, which was once a pencil case, which was once a television, which was once a can. And it tells you about the stories of how everything gets recycled, but we never really consider where everything has come from. And it's more just about having respect for both the things that we have that we take for granted and for the people behind the processes that make the things we take for granted and how we take them equally for granted.
See, you've turned that from we're going to do a show about a piece of metal to something that's quite fundamentally beautiful and something we should look at.
Yeah.
Well done. Okay. Well, so...
And if you're wondering, Proscenium Arch Theatre, we keep it front on because you know my fundamental belief that immersive theatre is wrong because it makes the audience think they matter. But yeah, any questions?
Can we have a scene where that bit of metal becomes like part of a rollerblade?
Yes, we can.
Then
we can have it become that part of the sheet of metal gets made off in some rollerblades for a production of Starlight Express, just so Jem has to watch it.
Yeah.
I suppose. I mean, that does it. It's brought the question to mind because I with this article I fell down a Wikipedia hole. I fell down the clicking of every link, and I now know a lot about 9/11. But I never ever discovered what happened to the actual, you know, all of the remains of the building had to go somewhere. How did any of it get recycled? That's a very interesting question that I will be Googling after we record the podcast. Okay, brilliant. I think we're showing the different approaches that we all take to theatre so far. Sean being the whimsy, Joe being the seems whimsy but then smacks you with a moral thing. Brilliant. Okay, so your idea is the life of a sheet of metal from factory line to boat name plate via one of the 21st century's worst disasters.
Yeah, and that it's all a searing tribute to the virtues of trade unions.
Fantastic. Joe ensuring that there is some form of political agenda being pushed.
It is important that is always discussed and is the backbone of everything I do.
Fantastic. All right. Okay. So I'll do my pitch now. I'm really, really intrigued as to how we're going to meld these together. I think we've gone for the epitome of what each of us actually does within OFD. But my show is very much it's a play. It's an actual human story. It's called Bravest, and I've actually written.
Can't have that. That's my show.
No, you called it the.
Yeah,
Bravest.
sorry, he has copyrighted that.
You called it the Bravest. I'm just Bravest. I'm brave enough to drop the. Exactly. And I've actually written out a pitch because I genuinely want to write this show. Okay. So Bravest. A tale across generations, serving, sailing, and saving. Because I got really into the idea.
You've really...
Alright, so an older retired man with his son and granddaughter. He used to serve with the New York Fire Department on the boats. He served on the boat that helped put out the fires of 9/11. And his son was just a boy at the time of 9/11, but now, after his father retired, he now serves on the Bravest on this boat with the New York Fire Department, bearing the nameplate from the World Trade Center, and acting as first guard against waterside fires at the airports and for New York City. Because one of the interesting things about this boat is that it's got an incredibly short, shallow draft, which I'm guessing is another word for hull, which is just 1 meter, which means it can get really close to the shorelines. I fell down a hole of research.
You mean you fell down a hole of research, but you never bothered to research boats?
No, I fell down the other hole. And then his young daughter, so the son's young daughter aspires to join the service in a few years' time, but so far she's too young for that, and she's facing her own challenges getting there. So they're all brave, have been the bravest, and also serve the Bravest, the fireboat. This is a story about overcoming challenge, being brave, and crossing generations. You're looking at me as if to say, why do you want to write that and not an arena show on rollerblades?
Well, I would ask, we haven't covered much of how do you envision yours in terms of, stagings, that kind of thing.
Staging, it's pretty much, one of the only times I'm going to be pitching a end-on proscenium arch, 3 casts straight narrative. I see it as being something that is a very simple play. Set wise, I'm imagining the boats are going to be part of it. I mean, if you're going to make this site specific, you do it on a boat, but I feel like it's best served more in sort of a black box or on a proscenium arch. And yeah, style being very naturalistic, very kind of something that you'd see at the National Theatre, kind of if you know the style of Jesus on an A Train, that was an amazing fast-paced play, and that kind of style is what I was seeing. I very much went down the writery route and also the research of the World Trade Center route. So yeah, that's my pitch.
Am I the only one whose show has boats in it?
No,
mine has a boat right at the end.
Mine has a boat in it. Well, mine's about the people who serve on the boat. And so, a boat can be included as a painting in the background. Or a set. You're the set designer.
I'd have them all sat round a log fire, telling tales of their time on the boats and their hardships.
Yeah, I think mine's a show that's very much about the condition of being human and how it shares its condition across generations. I'm making it sound real boring. The human condition transcends generation and also brings generations together, and I think each of these characters have their own struggles and they're going to help each other get over those struggles. It's the straightest play I've ever pitched in my life.
It's pretty. I'd watch it. I'd go. I quite like how you instead of like. It makes me feel now I've just gone for like, there's a boat. Let's do something with the boat.
On the scale,
you've looked at the boat and you've gone, there's people in that boat. What's inside them? Let's tell that story.
On the scale of nothing to boat, Sean's on the boat side, Joe's on the nothing side, and Jem's sitting somewhere in the middle with too much feelings.
And it's also like you both went for like mentioning 9/11, where I was like purposely, I'm a British person who like, you know, didn't really feel like the impact on it. It doesn't really, you know, it's not part of my culture as much, because I was like, I'm not gonna touch it at all. Up to the point where I didn't want to call it New York, because I thought, if I have disasters in New York, I don't mention it at all. But you guys were like, no, it's part of the thing.
You did the very, very British thing, which is don't look at it, don't stare at it, don't mention it at all, don't mention the war.
Yeah. Get on your rollerblades and skate right past it.
Okay, well, we've all done our pitches, as diverse as they are, and now we come to the common conundrum that we have with every OFIT production, which is each of us are passionate about our ideas, but how do we make one singular show out of it? So, we've got a couple of categories, and
these are 3 completely different shows.
I have no idea how we're going to do this.
If only there was some kind of 3-sided coin we could flip.
But what we've got to do is we've got some categories that are fundamental to creating a theatre show, and we've got to work through them to decide what they are so that we come to a singular, cohesive and comprehensive theatre show that will be called Bravest or The Bravest. The first decision we have to do to make is whether we keep the. I say no. I say let's be brave and drop the. It wasn't the Facebook.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it was the Facebook to begin with, but that's a story for another day.
But follow the advice.
Yeah. I mean, I will say here that my play was actually called Blank Sheet, in tribute to the sheet of metal upon which the entire story is applied. But I'm quite happy to you know, take the compromise and we call it Bravest.
Okay, so it's a show called Bravest. Now, the first thing that a show needs is a story, which I feel is going to be the hardest.
No.
So, what is the story? What is the narrative?
I argue no, it doesn't need a story. A story can be applied, it doesn't need it. Have you watched Waiting for Godot? It's this week's Beckett reference.
My brain...
That has no plot.
My brain is coming to some form of a smorgasbord of our 3 ideas. Sean has, if you're not watching this, Sean's pulled out a Samuel Beckett play because he's that much of a nerd that he has one to hand. Secret theatre nerd. But I think, I wonder if there's an idea in going, the fireboats...
Gemma's, the noise you make trying to think, how am I going to put these together?
How am I going to put together a play with no characters beyond a sheet of metal? A play about the human condition and its striving against adversity, and talking boats.
Watch my brain work. Watch my brain work. Okay. I think we focus on a story structure that is based on the idea that both the fireboats as well as 9/11 affected so many different people, and its impact to one individual or one family is massive for that family, but not necessarily for the world. But in totality, there were thousands of people killed. It's quite impressive. And so it's all of these fractured narratives. So I think we need to find a device that means that we can go from the child who is watching his show about boats on the telly, but his parents are trying to get him to please watch this bit of the news because it's important, and his parents know that this is going to impact on this child's life, but all he wants to do is watch the boats, and that child's going to be called Sean. But then we also skate through that. We see these fragments of reality, we see these fragments of story where then you've got the man who's on one of the fireboats putting out the fire of 9/11, and he's thinking about his son, who, you know, will he be able to go back to his son at the end of this, and also what world is his son going to grow up to be. And I think probably when we take the sheet of metal literally, I think maybe that falls to Sean to make a set out of metal, because that could, the pictures of 9/11 with the last things that were remaining were the broken steel rods that formed the structure of the building, so you can play with those ideas. But I think this idea that you've got where you talk about the history of an object, maybe the way that we bounce through all of these human stories is through a singular object, whether that singular object is maybe a television or I don't know, a piece of mail or a dollar bill, and how that dollar bill is traveled from hands to hands as it's earned by the fireman, given to his son, who hands it to a mate in a playground who sees the show, and that dollar bill gets donated to another cause, and we keep, and maybe that's how we kind of tie all of these ideas together. So then at the end you've got this sort of smorgasbord of ideas that sort of has that idea that you've been taken on a journey by a singular object, and that life of an object that Joe's put forward, always bringing back to the distraction and how we don't want to look at disasters that Sean's put forward with the boat, and then always kind of looking into the human aspect of this disaster and of the disasters that always go forward, because fireboats only ever turn up at disasters because they're there for massive fires, which, unless you're an arsonist, a massive fire tends to be a disaster in some way. But we look at the human stories, and that's what I've pitched in.
So are you suggesting we integrate Sean's story as something of
a motif,
the child's coping mechanism around the world towards it?
Yeah, a coping mechanism and a motif.
A nice, light-hearted podcast about 9/11.
Well, if I can suggest, if we're going to do it about this kind of transitory nature of these objects passing through generations, can we in some way attempt to go more ambitious and tell the story of America?
No.
Can we begin at a steel mill in
No.
Sheffield and transition over the sea? You didn't think that living in Sheffield I wasn't going to mention us being the Steel City, right?
I'm surprised it took you this long, to be honest.
I wanted to naturally integrate it.
There you go. I mean, you made your whole play about a sheet of steel and didn't mention Sheffield.
No, that's not fair. That's not fair at all. You live in Sheffield, fine, you talk about steel. We're talking about boats, and I haven't mentioned canals at all, and I live in Birmingham.
You have mentioned canals once.
Canals.
Oh.
Sean, just say it.
Well, it's got more canals than Venice, has Birmingham.
There we go.
There you go. And I'm mentioning the disasters of cities because I live in London. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into the other categories, because I think the story one's going to be something that we have to come back to.
I think you've covered the story one, Gemma.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So the style of the show is always key. That's not only to that's to decide whether it's interactive or it's a musical theatre piece, or if it's experimental, or if it's end on something that you'd see in the National Theatre. So what's the style of this
It is not
show?
musical theatre at all. No one wants to see a song and dance about fireboats and 9/11.
I'm pretty sure there is one. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty
Not
sure
necessarily about that, but I can say that there is London Road, which I think it's London Road, which is a verbatim musical about a series of serial killings.
I'm pretty sure I heard recently a friend tell me that they were going to a musical theatre play about 9/11. I will correct myself if I find out it was a musical theatre about some other disaster, and I'll ask that person and I'll put it in the description of this podcast, which will be a random tidbit for anybody who hasn't reached this point at the top in the podcast, but hey ho. Okay, so what's the style? Other than it's not musical theatre, is it going to be... I think it's just going to be a straight up proscenium march play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Serious.
it's an end-on play.
serious show in the National Theatre.
Yeah, serious show with mild elements of like Hunter S. Thompson coming in with boats on rollerblades.
No, you can't butcher my idea of ripping off Starlight Express. It's either everyone on rollerblades or no rollerblades.
Okay, no rollerblades it is then. Take the fun away, Sean. Okay. So,
By the way,
yeah.
Jem, just thought I'd say, looked it up, and I think what you're thinking of is the musical Come From Away, which is a Canadian musical all about what happened when 38 planes were forced to land in the town of Gander in Newfoundland because of September the 11th.
Because of it. Okay, there you go. Yep, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yep. You're talking about... yep, there you go. It was associated with 9/11. I didn't think somebody had the balls to go completely in for 9/11, but... Yeah, okay, we're going to move past that.
But yeah, just thought I'd do a little bit of fact-checking for you.
Thank you. Live fact-checking. This is what Joe's for. So the next category is that we need to decide on is what's the stage setup. So we've actually just said that. It's going to be an end on in a theatre, proscenium arch.
In a nice theatre.
In a nice theatre, so that people don't feel like they're dying.
Of course, eventually when people decide that the best bits of it are Sean's bit, we can transfer it to arenas.
Yes. Well, yeah. We always listen to our audiences. We always listen to what people want. We listen to feedback, and if the feedback takes us closer to Sean's dream, then we will have learned a lesson.
It's going to be too late by then. Disney have already going to buy the... It's going to be on Disney Plus by the time this podcast comes out.
Yeah, they'll probably already have 2 seasons of Boats up.
Yeah.
6 seasons
and
in a
it
movie.
will be a musical just to annoy Sean.
So, the next category is set and the design of the show. So, Sean, you are the resident make things look pretty person. So what are your thoughts? And Joe, also, what are your thoughts? Because mine, so far, have just been something made of steel.
Yeah, I was going to suggest steel scaffolding.
That is... Oh, whenever you see a show with that, that's just like they gave up and they thought they were being edgy.
Exactly.
What
I'm going for the most bare bones, screw it type set design.
The director said, I want levels. And then it was like scaffolding. Got that done.
Yep.
Exactly.
This is why Sean's the designer. So, Sean...
I would say, just going from your monologue about story about 10 minutes ago, I would have it just set maybe... Oh, I don't know. Maybe, you know what? I'm going to go with a revolving stage where...
Yes, I like it.
You really are going national on this.
Yeah, I am. Where you've got the living room of the family, all the generations, and then it revolves to the boat.
I love it.
Are you going to also have some moody, shadow-heavy lighting by chance? Just go full national.
And then it revolves again to central ground zero, and then it revolves again, and then it's just there we go.
To be fair, I can say the National Theatre production from a few years ago of Treasure Island did have a very good effect of making the Hispaniola, the ship, rise from the ground. So we do know they at least have precedent for making ships appear.
They do.
Which does help.
Okay, fantastic. So revolving. And actors. Well, cast is mainly the next thing we have to decide. Is it a big choral cast? Is it a cast that's quite small? Are there a lot of supporting cast members? So I'd say it's like a medium-sized cast, like sort of 8 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
those 3 your family members, and then some like the other people to play the other people.
Yeah. Friends. You know,
multi-rolling. Like, oh, I'm a boat person who works with your father. Another scene. I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah, I think having the 3 core cast members and then some supporting casts to play different interactions as they maybe go through their memories, and also to help pass the dollar bill around. All right,
The
and
dollar
any
bill?
other need?
What's the dollar bill?
The dollar bill was the object, or whatever would be the object.
I
That
thought the bit of
passed
steel
around
was
to
the
ship to-
object. I thought the steel was...
It's we could. Who passes steel between each other? That's the problem. Is we've got to try and find an object that can be passed.
Who doesn't want to
between
make a
different
show
people?
about rollerblading boats? Your logic makes no sense.
It is entirely going against my ideals to make a play that centres around the handing of money.
True.
That is just going to incur a lot of arguments from me that we can't get into.
Yeah, I'm not 100% behind the dollar bill idea.
Yeah.
Can we just call it like a Mcguffin from now? A steel Mcguffin. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
A Mcguffin. Okay. Brilliant. Let's pop back to story, because now's the point in the podcast where I tend to summarize the story and the whole show, and I've looked at the story category and I've just got a giant question mark.
If we had gone with my idea, we could have, at this point, we could have been talking about branding for like all the toys we could have made, or like the Netflix TV series, and then like the spin-off animated series that could have gone with it. But no, we went with a serious thing. So
I could have pulled around my keyboard and written us a few jaunty little first draft songs.
I mean, Joe, if you wanted to go with Sean's idea, you could have stood in
no,
his
it's too late
place.
now. It's too late now. We've got that dollar bill.
Yeah, you know me. I just like causing further arguments.
I like the idea that it's a McGuffin that's not a dollar bill. It's maybe something that can be found, and passed on. You know, adds a lot more sentimentality than a dollar bill. Okay.
Well, I know it's saying to go back to my idea, but how about if we take it as not so much something that's past, but we go it as the different directions that one thing has taken. So if we explore this kind of like, say it's even like 3 sheets of steel or however much, and we explore the different places that these different sheets of steel go into making, and we explore kind of the routes that one simple element can go into making so many things, and it playing into the stories of so many things, and we take it as from that. So it's the central crux of it is looking at all these different stories where the one link in it is that at the beginning of it something metal arrives.
I like that, because I'm not 100% behind the idea that we're making a show about the World Trade Center and 9/11, because as much as I am somebody who likes serious theatre, I don't like that kind of serious theatre. You know, I watched it. I don't have to watch it again.
That steel thing can act as like a metaphor for the family that are on the Fireboat, that like they all have
exactly
these different lives and they've gone to different places and they all come together to be part of the boat.
It's one of the more disregarded metals in the sense of people higher valuing your platinums or your silvers or gold in terms of element. And steel, it is rigid, it is strong. Steel is the backbone of everything. But people disregard it in favour of the fancier stuff. And that is the spirit of it. It's this notion of
it's an underrated
the strength,
metal.
the integrity. It's a really underrated metal, guys. It's the brutalism of metal. It's the original Birmingham Library against the fancy modern one that has no use.
Okay.
Can I just say something?
And
the
I'm
old
surprised-
one was concrete and the new one is like more metal on the outside, so that makes no
Yeah, I
sense at
know,
all.
but I was saying in spirit, it is more more steel than it is kind of whatever it is now. Chrome.
I like the new library. I don't know what you're talking about.
This is a separate podcast.
This is a very separate podcast, so I'm going to bring it back and somehow do what I usually do for O50, because Sean usually brings the whimsy, Joe usually brings the curveballs, and I try and tether it all together. It's a question as to how I've kept any of my sanity. All right, so Outfit Deep Productions present Bravest, a straight end-on theatre show with a cast of 8 people in a revolving set in a comfortable theatre. A story that follows the lifespan of the use of steel and how steel, a common element that we use, can touch the various different lives that each of us lead. Pulling up straws here, man.
Hang on. Are you sure?
No.
I thought we were doing like the family sort of thing of the generations on the boat, and like the steel thing is like a subplot acting as like a metaphor for the family.
Yes. There you go.
Yeah.
Sean, there you go, Sean.
My God, I was paying attention.
I was pretty sure what we did settled on was kind of going for like 100 Years of Solitude, but about a family on a boat instead of like boat family instead of farm.
Brilliant.
And no
okay.
rollerblades.
So, Outfit D present Bravest, a story about a family of firefighters who work in New York City, and how their life is affected by the fireboats of New York City and the different adventures that might lead them on. There's also a subplot that ties every story together that is about the steel and how a piece of steel can be used in all of these different elements, all of these different stories. It's a little bit of a Mcguffin, and this is set on a revolving stage in a nice theatre with potentially some metal in the set, and with 8 people as its cast. There's your very cobbled together elevator pitch for the Bravest, and that is the conclusion of our podcast. Wow, for an opening one, that was hard. And I don't think
an opening one, you guys kept it really like light, didn't you? Yeah, like let's start off. Oh, there's this really good thing about a big red boat, about people saving lives. I know there's this one sentence here about 9/11. Let's just completely concentrate on that. Well done, you two.
I mean, I like the way also that my fear with this concept for a podcast was going to be, what if we get an article about some weird obscure element in the chemical timetable, but no, we got a really nice article and the difficulty came from us.
No. Difficulty came from you two.
I mean, I'm just starting as I mean to go on.
Same, you know. So, right, what we're going to do now is we got to choose the next week's article. So I'm going to hand over to Joe. Joe, hit the random button and find us next week's hard podcast to pitch for.
All right, I will do so. And while I do, you can obviously, if you're looking for us, you can find OFITD Productions wherever you want to look for us. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Google. Everyone's on Google. But if you want to look specifically for any of us, you can find Sean at...
Still Shawnee B on the things.
You can find Jem at...
OFITD_Jem with a J.
And you can find me at Not Joe Ronchka on Twitter and Twitter only. That's NOTJOERACZKA.
Isn't
and
it
are
Joseph?
You two ready to find out?
It's Joseph.
It is not. It's not.
Are you sure?
I changed it a while back.
Oh,
I'm sure.
Then I need to change all the graphics.
I
that
should
I've made
know,
up for this.
Sean. Well, anyway, would you two like to know what we are going to be covering next time on Theatre Pitch?
Roll.
Yep.
We have list of terms related to an average person.
Wait.
Yes, that's right. From 83 nations around the world, from Albania all the way to Zimbabwe. International ones covering the UN and the European Union, and a separate section of unsorted. We have terms for an average person.
Terms for... Brilliant.
Everything from average Joe to man on the Clapham omnibus.
Okay, all right, brilliant, fantastic. So, Next week's podcast is going to be about.
I already know how I'm going to do it.
I'm just going to go completely obscure and get someone just standing there saying the words. Right, this week's podcast, thank you very much for listening. It was on The Bravest. I have been Jem, Joe has been Joe, Sean has been Sean. Next week's podcast is going to be on, Joe, please repeat it for the audience.
List of terms related to an average person.
Fantastic. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, comment, subscribe. If you have any opinion on the pitches, if you think we should have gone with Sean's or Joe's or even mine, or if you think there's a glaring hole in how we could have joined all three of those together that in the moment none of us could figure out, then let us know in the comments. And if you've got a different pitch for Bravest, throw it at us and maybe we'll have you on. Or even a pitch for the next article. But until then, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.
Cheerio.